What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue here with we wrap up our Power 5 predictions. We've gone through the other Power 5 conferences, but we're going to finish things out here with the Pac-12. I've done videos on every single team in the Power 5, every Pac-12 team. If you want to get more in-depth predictions, game-by-game predictions, all of that, you can find those videos here on the channel. But we're kind of wrapping things up here, and I'll do my playoff predictions tomorrow. But yeah, looking at the Pac-12, this is the best that the Pac-12 has been in a long time. And with the other Power 5 conferences, to me, there was a clear team that is going to win the championship, at least now, before we see any games. Obviously, I'm probably going to miss some of those predictions. But, Georgia in the SEC, Florida State in the ACC, Michigan in the Big Ten, and Texas in the Big 12. Those are pretty clear-cut winners for me right now. Again, things are going to change once we see the teams play. Some teams will be better and worse than we thought. But the Pac-12, there are 4 teams that have a great argument, a legitimate chance to win this conference. USC, Oregon, Washington, and Utah. And I think even Oregon State and UCLA could be dark horse teams. It's tough to predict the Pac-12 and pick a winner. A lot of it does have to do with how the schedules fall. But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, this is the best the Pac-12 has been in a long time, and I said that in another video. It's kind of ironic. The Pac-12 has been down for so long. They finally have this great season with 4 top 10, top 12 teams, and the Pac-12 is going to be no more. So at least they go out on top here. Maybe even with a national champion. It could happen. This conference is going to be good. I do have Stanford at the bottom, though, at 2-10, 0-9 in the conference. Just did a video on them. I don't think the roster is there. Quarterback position is definitely a concern. Some other areas of concern with this team, and they didn't really do anything in the transfer portal. Plus, they were pretty bad last year. New coach. It's just there's not much reason for optimism. And I'll be honest, I had Stanford as a surprise team last year. I can't remember if I had them at 7-5 or 8-4, but I thought they were going to have a really good year last year. So it's nothing against Stanford. I just look at this team, this roster, and I don't think they're going to be very good this year. And I think they're going to finish at the bottom. Maybe, like I said the other day, maybe the worst Power 5 team in college football. I've got Arizona State just ahead of them at 4-8, 2-7 in the conference. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but I do think they're going to struggle to find wins. Some transfers will help them, and I think that's the reason why they do get a couple of wins. But I've got them finishing there at number 11. Actually ahead of them, Colorado at 3-6, 4-8 in the conference. We did our, I've done, like I said, done predictions on all these teams. You can watch those videos if you want more of my thoughts on these teams. Colorado did a lot with the transfer portal, obviously. That's an understatement. But they completely revamped this team. And I think they've got enough athletes to be able to go out there and compete. And I think they're going to pull off a big win, an upset somewhere along the way. And I think they'll get a couple of wins against the lower teams of the Pac-12 and get to 3-6. But the non-conference schedule is tough, and I don't see them getting to a bowl game. But I do have them, again, a little bit improved from where they were last year, just with a really tough schedule. I've got Cal ahead of them, 5-7, 3-6 in the conference. This is a sleeper team and when I say sleeper, I think they could wind up doing better than this, maybe like a 7-5 type year. But again, it's tough to find wins for these teams at the bottom of the Pac-12. When you've got 6 really good teams, 4 really good teams, it's hard to find wins if you've got 5 or 6 losses already. It just is what it is. And there's a huge gap, I think, in the top and the bottom of the Pac-12. But so I don't think Cal's going to be terrible, but again, finding wins against those top teams is tough. I think they do the same as Colorado, 3-6, but 5-7 overall. I've got Washington State at 6-6, 4-5 in the conference, and this is really the same story. I think Washington State has a chance to be pretty good. I have them losing to Wisconsin, but it wouldn't shock me if they won that game and maybe even win a couple more games. I think this is if you just look at this team and you didn't look at the conference and the schedule and all that, I'd say that's probably an 8-4 team. But again, when you get into these games, all these games against really good teams in the Pac-12, it's hard to give them wins, and you wind up at 6-6, just 4-5 in the conference. And it's really the same thing with Arizona. It's the exact same thing, 4-5 in the conference, 6-6 overall. I do think both of those teams find their way to a bowl game. Both teams could be surprise teams. If a team's going to come out of nowhere and get to the Pac-12 championship, I really think it is Washington State. I think they've got some pieces there to possibly surprise. Obviously, I'm not picking it. I've got them at 6-6. But if a team is going to come out of nowhere, watch out for them. Arizona, I don't know if they have the capability of doing that, but I do think they're on their way up, and I think it gets them to a bowl game at 6-6. All right, now we've got UCLA coming in at number 6, 8-4 in the conference, or 8-4 overall, 5-4 in the conference. Really, quarterback position is interesting here. Does Dante Moore wind up being the starter, or do they go with one of the veterans? They've got a lot of pieces. They've used the transfer portal well. I don't think the defense is going to be great, but good enough to win several games. And I don't think they're quite on that level, those top 4 teams, but I still think they're going to be a really good team. Same thing with Oregon State. I don't think they're on that level of the top 4, but still a chance to be really good. And, we heard some things the other day about DJ Uiagalelei looking really, really good in practice. If he goes out and plays like he's, like his potential, like an All-American type quarterback, Oregon State can absolutely win the Pac-12. I have my doubts. Based off of what I've seen, he's just too inconsistent. But I may be wrong, and maybe he's worked hard in the offseason. And if they get that good quarterback play with everything else they've got, yes, Oregon State can be a very dangerous team and possibly win the Pac-12. That's how good they could be. I'm not predicting it to happen, but it could. Again, I think really it all hinges on him. And maybe the secondary has to play really well. That's another area I'm concerned about with this team. But I think they get to 8-4, 5-4 in the conference. And ahead of them, I've got Utah, 9-3, 6-3 in the conference. I don't think they're really behind those top 3 teams. I think those 4 teams are all about the same. But the schedule just kind of falls the way it falls. I think they're going to wind up being that team to lose 3 games. I think all the top 3 teams are sitting there at 10-2 or better. But I think Utah does lose 3 games, so I've got them going 9-3. They've got a couple of tough non-conference games with Florida and Baylor, so you might even see this team go 8-4. That wouldn't surprise me, especially if Cam Rising is not 100% to start the season. So Utah at number 4, I've got Oregon at number 3, and man, did I struggle with these top 3. I think Utah, because of their schedule, they're clearly the number 4 team. Again, not saying they're really that much worse or worse at all than the top 3 teams. But just the way their schedule falls, I think that they're kind of out of the discussion for me to get into that top 2. But then you look at USC, Washington, and Oregon, and it is so close. So I've got Oregon at 3, and then I've got Washington at number 2. Both teams 10-2, both teams 7-2 in the conference. Washington gets Oregon at home, and I think because of that, they win that game and they win the tiebreaker. But I've really gone back and forth on this one. I think Oregon is going to be really, really good. I think they're a top 10 team potentially, but Washington's going to have, they're going to be really good as well. I think Washington has a little bit better offense than Oregon. I think Oregon has better defense than Washington. It's a tough call, but again, when you look at that game, that head-to-head matchup, it is at Washington, and I think that's the difference between these 2 teams and as far as who gets the Pac-12 championship. But I've got USC finishing number 1. 8-1 in the conference, 10-2 overall. I do have them losing to Notre Dame, but going 8-1, so I do have them finishing first. Their schedule, I kind of like the way it plays out, and I think it's going to give them an opportunity to get to 8-1 and get to that Pac-12 championship. So that means we've got USC and Washington in the Pac-12 championship. Should be a great game, a lot of points, a shootout for sure. Again, you're going to see maybe a game that's in the 40s or 50s here. I just like Caleb Williams a little bit more. I like the talent that USC has on defense. They haven't really lived up to that, but in my opinion, have more speed and athleticism to match up with the Washington offense than Washington has on defense to match up with the USC offense. And I think USC wins this game. So I've got USC as the Pac-12 champions this year. Could see it as Washington, could see it as Oregon, and don't count out Utah. I know the schedule, like I said, is a little bit tougher in my opinion for them, but I could see them there again as well. And don't count out Oregon State, again, if DJ Uiagalelei winds up playing great. And like I said, if there's a sleeper team, maybe Washington State shocks the world. But I'm going to go with, I guess, the safe pick here, USC. I think they are going to be the best team in the Pac-12, not by a lot, but just enough to wind up winning this conference. We'd love to get your thoughts, your predictions on the Pac-12 in the final season. Who do you think is going to win it? Let me know down in the comments below.